Could we be on the verge of World War III? Well, according to President Biden, yeah.
And amen. And boom, shakalaka. Can you give the Lord some praise in here today?
I know that it is not a popular thing to do right now because there's so much in the news: inflation, opening borders, baby formula shortages, and it's the NFL season. But if you're paying attention to what is happening over in Ukraine right now, or what's happening in Europe with Russia, it's very, very frightening. Last week, we got word that the Nord Stream 2, 1 and 2 pipeline was sabotaged, that it was actually blown up. That is the line that provides natural gas from Russia to Germany. Now, truth be told, Nord Stream 2 was never operational, and they had cut back the gas that was flowing between Russia and Germany to about 20%. But still, this was a major act of sabotage. It was also, an environmental catastrophe. It's all of that oil, all of that gas was like seeping into the sea, seeping up, into the atmosphere. And, the environmentalist activists, they didn't make a big deal out of it, which I thought was strange. But also the people, the major players here, they didn't make a big fat deal out of it. And a day prior to the explosion, you had Germans who were protesting their government, wanting them to open up the gas lines because, of course, because of the embargoes, Europe is facing a long, cold summer to the point where you've got Germans going and chopping down trees to burn for fuel. You've got Polish folks taking their cars out to the coal mines and trying to load it up with coal. Europe is in a pretty serious situation. And then all of a sudden, just like that, boom, their situation gets worse because the natural gas lines are blown up, which means that any type of leverage that Russia had over the EU, the European Union, is gone. Just stop the sanctions and I'll turn on the gas. Gone. There's no gas to be turned on. These pipes are probably destroyed, pipelines destroyed forever, salt water in the line and all of that. And there's a lot more to it, a lot more to that pipeline. But I want to start here. Did the Biden administration blow up those pipelines? Did the Biden administration, with the help of NATO or maybe Poland, blow up Russia's pipelines? I know, it's laughable. Why would we do that? Well, if we're to believe Joe Biden, yeah, we did do it. And the reason why we did it is because of Russia aggression in Ukraine. All over the world, I should say all last weekend, you had people coming forward. We have to see who did this. Who's responsible for the pipeline? Well, the United States, if we're to believe Joe Biden. Before we go any further, I want you to know that I am not a puppet of Russia, nor do I support Russian aggression in Ukraine. However, this whole thing got ramped up during the Biden administration. And last February, Joe Biden said something very, very curious. It's one of those moments where he was threatening to take the bully behind the bleachers of high school and then beat him up, sort of the way he beat up, Corn Pop and all those cats. But in retrospect, this was really a serious moment. Check out Joe Biden threatening Vladimir Putin, Russia, and cryptically explaining to a reporter, we'll get it done.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
I promise you, we'll be able to do it. Well, Russia did move into Ukraine. It was an invasion. They brought in tanks, airplanes, all that stuff. And here we are now, months later, and Nord Stream 2 is no more. It's finished. And he wasn't the only one. We also had a member from the State Department make the same statements. Now, all of a sudden, Biden's saying we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out who actually did this. Really? And where is the enterprising reporter going up to Joe Biden and asking the question, hey, Mr. President, did you blow up Nord Stream 2? I mean, you said you were going to do something. You were saying there's going to be no more, and now it's gone. Where are our reporters doing this, asking these questions? They're not. I find that very curious as well. Today we had a reporter, Jeffrey Sachs. He was explaining his theory on what happened to Nord Stream 2. And right in the middle of his discussion, you had an American reporter, maybe it was a British cat. Anyway, what Jeffrey Sachs was saying was not acceptable, was not to be said out loud, and he got interrupted. But to his credit, he continued. Check this out.
Europe is in a very, very sharp economic downturn. The sharp decline of output and living standards also shows up as a rise of prices. But the main fact is that the European economy is getting hammered by this, by the sudden cutoff of energy. And now, to make it definitive, the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S. and Poland. This is
right, Jeff, we got to stop there. That's quite a statement as well. Why do you feel
Absolutely.
that was a U.S. action? What evidence do you have of that?
Well, first of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. helicopters, military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, were circling over this area. We also had the threats from the United States earlier in this year that one way or another, we are going to end Nord Stream. We also have a remarkable statement by Secretary Blinken last Friday in a press conference. He says, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a strange way to, it's a strange way to talk if you're worried about the piracy on international infrastructure of vital significance. So I know this runs counter to our narrative. You're not allowed to say these things in the West. But the fact of the matter is, all over the world, when I talk to people, they think the U.S. did it. Just to tell you. And by the way, even reporters on our papers that are involved tell me privately, yeah, well, of course, but it doesn't show up in our media.
Well, of course, but it doesn't show up in our media. Yeah, it doesn't show up in our media. And I wonder why. Could it be because our media is full of propaganda? Now, this guy, he's over in Vienna. And he's talking to professionals, in Europe, around the country. And they're saying the same thing I said last week. It is obvious that Russia did not blow up their own pipeline. They don't have any interest in doing that. All they could do is shut off the gas if they didn't want anybody to have anything. But it's in our best interest. And Anthony Blinken, Secretary Blinken, gave it away when he said, what a tremendous opportunity. Now we can sell Europe gas. Now Poland, we opened up a new pipeline a day after we blew up the Nord Stream. Yes, this is a tremendous opportunity. What nobody is doing is talking about the possible repercussions of this. I mean, is Russia going to take this sitting down? Does Russia have a long game? Does Russia are going to be content with all the money that they could have made from the pipeline, the money that they poured into the pipeline, the fact that it was blown up, the fact that was an act of war? Is Vladimir Putin a punk? Again, I am not a puppet of Putin, nor do I support Russian aggression in Ukraine. What I'm talking about is how our administration is just doing things that are going to lead to a global conflict, and nobody seems concerned about it. You can't even talk about it. You saw how they tried to check the professor, and all he was doing was connecting the dots. Wait a minute. All he was doing was talking, saying exactly what Biden said he was going to do. This is just such a strange place that we find ourselves in. We have a hapless president. The man has dementia, but he has moments of clarity. And that was one of them. If Russia does this, We're going to do that. And that's exactly what happened. But now the media is in denial. Oh, no, you can't prove it. We can't jump to conclusions. He just told you what he was going to do. Over the weekend, Vladimir Putin said what he was going to do, and it's frightening. He's saying that America is degenerate. He was saying that America, we aren't even confused on our genders, let alone policy. He absolutely punked the United States. But you didn't hear about that. You didn't read about that. Our media is not covering it. It's all one-sided. It's all propaganda. And I refuse to believe what the media is feeding us about what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the conflict with Russia and Ukraine. If you read outside the United States press, you're going to get a completely different story. Just know this. Our administration is the one that is beating the drums of war. Our administration is the one that's ramping things up. And if you're not aware of this, and you think, oh my gosh, that evil Vladimir Putin, he's going to cause World War III. We didn't have these problems under the Trump administration. We didn't have Vladimir Putin making a move. We didn't have chaos in Europe. We didn't, but we do now. Gee, I wonder why. Skyrocketing gas prices. We've shut down oil production. We have a war with fossil fuels in this country. We have open borders in this country. We had a debacle with the Afghan withdrawal in this country. All of this under the Biden administration. And now, all of a sudden, you're going to trust the Biden administration when it comes to Russia and Ukraine? I think not. This is my YouTube channel. I'm going to keep a close eye on what is happening out in the Ukraine, what's happening with Russia. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell. Every time we put up a new video, you will be notified. Until we meet again, pay attention and let's go.